Blackballed, 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 Blackballed.
What is up, everybody? My name is James D. Fiore, and this is Blackballed. My guest today has one of the most interesting stories that I've heard in a long time, and in a tragic kind of way. Not in a tragic kind of way, in a very tragic way. When I first heard about this church, the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church, the very first thing that came to mind was Scientology, especially in the way that the church treats the people who have either been excommunicated or choose to leave. In this person's case, he became a whistleblower, and he'll be able to talk in detail about that. And ever since, his life has been just completely turned upside down. His name is Richard Marsh. And Richard, welcome to the show. How are you, buddy?
Yes, I'm good, James. Thank you.
Good. So mostly what I want to do with this interview is really just let you tell your story, because when you told me, I was first of all, I was kind of floored. I'm a non-believer. So when I think of religion, I'm always coming at it from a place that's probably negative. It's probably not a good thing that I'm so negative towards religion. But the particular church that you belong to, the Plymouth Brethren Church, seems particularly heinous to people that want to leave, or in your case, people that blow the whistle. Can you tell me first, like from the beginning, how you got involved with this church and how old you were, and we'll take it from there?
Technically, I believe I was 6 days old when I first joined the church. According to their strange doctrines, you're not actually a member of the church until you've been baptized, and they believe in infant baptism. So I was submerged in my parents' enamel cast iron bathtub at approximately 6 days old by an elderly brother in the locality. Well, I suppose he wasn't that elderly at the time. Sometime approximately the last day of October, quite possibly even Halloween, October of 1971. My recollection of the event is a little hazy, but the point is that 99% of church members are born into the church, and many of them are third, fourth, fifth, sixth generation. The commentators often loosely describe the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church, or exclusive brethren, as evangelicals. They're not evangelical in any sense of the word. Evangelical means a church or system that goes out and preaches and tries to draw converts into the church. The PBCC does not want people to join. They have plenty of victims produced by biological means without the hassle of trying to brainwash and convert people who might have already got a glimpse of reality. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, I think it does. So let's actually fast forward a bit. So you were in the church basically your whole life.
Absolutely.
And then something happened, and in the UK, that made you take a stand. Let's fast forward to that and tell us what that was.
Oh, sure, yeah. So I'm very limited what I can actually say about the specific events because of legal restrictions and court orders in members of the church. But say that at some point about in 2015, I became aware of a number of instances of fraud and dishonesty in businesses owned by church members. Um, some of
Am I
which,
allowed to?
yeah. Oh, you can say what the hell you like.
Okay.
Yeah.
From what I understand, and I don't think I have the details on like what kind of equipment and all that kind of stuff, but basically the church was taking it. Actually, wait a second. I might be getting confused of two different things. What was the PPE situation? Is that what we're talking about? The
No. PD is a further chapter. This is a long and complex story. But the
Okay.
incident that led to my um, departure, well, the point at which I realized the church wasn't what it said it was, related to observing and being informed by outsiders of fraudulent, very, very serious multi-million pound
and they were
physically
siphoning
dangerous
money
fraud.
from the
Yeah.
UK's health system. Is that right? Wait,
Um,
you don't have to. You can
no
touch
comment.
your nose. I don't know. Are you allowed to touch your nose? Not sure.
I'll probably get away with it. Yeah.
Um, Guys, just to let the audience know, it is very difficult for Richard to be able to speak into detail because there are, as he said, court proceedings that are taking place right now. But he blew the whistle on some wrongdoing that had to do with the church basically getting paid lots of money from the UK health system. And I think that they were obligated to improve the health situation on some equipment, and they just basically pocketed the money. I'm probably getting that a bit wrong, but since I don't want to dance around it too much because I know that you can't really speak about it, and I don't want to put you on the spot. However, let's just say wrongdoing was happening. You blew the whistle. Then what happened?
Yeah, well, I mean, we could give a hypothetical situation that a church member who was working in a brethren-owned business, as they are obliged to do, you have to work for a brethren business. If a church member who worked for a brethren business was to become aware of dishonesty or fraud occurring in that business, the church would expect that he would report that firstly to the business owner, and secondly to um, his local congregation's leading brother or priest, as they get called, and then the Brethren administration would look after that situation, and the person who had made the report would be bound to silence and to not mention the situation again. If, however, the brother who observed the wrongdoing was to report that wrongdoing to the authorities, such as, for example, the police, the government departments, health and safety executive, then that would be constituted an act of treachery and unbrotherliness. And it would result in penalties and consequences for the whistleblower. Um, I'm not saying that's what happened to me, but that is typically what happens within the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church. They regard themselves, and in their own words, in the words of their leaders, the assembly, which is what they call themselves when they're convened, is the highest court in the land. They regard it as a higher court than any of the civil or government courts of the world. And they do their own administration in matters of misconduct, even if it's criminal and dangerous. and even if they're supremely unqualified to perform that administrative act.
Yeah, some of the stories that I've heard, there are, we're not going to talk about this tonight, but there, I've been told and read about accusations of, abuse. The way the church operates, it kind of reminds me of like an amalgamated entity that takes parts of Scientology and parts of Catholicism. The Catholicism part is that whole self-governance thing. When the Catholic priest scandals were happening all over the world and in North America, Ireland, UK, all that, it was the reason why it was so systemic is because often the authorities would punt the responsibility for punishment or for dealing with the situation back to the church. This sounds like that. Like this church sounds like they want everything to be internalized, everything handled within.
Exactly. Yeah.
And to top it all off, they're basically an international conglomerate as well, right? What is the UBT?
The UBT is technically, officially, it's a business consultancy organization. It runs extensive business consultancy in the sense of they provide training and courses and training manuals and conferences, online conferences, in-person conferences. They supply advisors, they supply accountancy services. In reality, it is the collection mechanism whereby the church garners money from its members. The members are all encouraged is an understatement. To get anywhere at all inside the church, you have to run a very, very successful and profitable business. The UBT assists the members in doing that, and then they charge extremely fat consultancy fees, which are funneled back into church coffers. So it's the collection mechanism that takes the money from all the very successful brethren businesses, puts it back into the church.
Yeah.
Under the guise of gold, silver, and platinum subscriptions to the UBT's consultancy services.
Oh, how convenient.
Right.
Is that the tithing? Is that their version of a tithing?
It performs the same function, but of course they don't admit that this is. I mean, the members are told that the whole massive commercial build-up, UBT, everything else in the church is purely to fund the Brethren school system. In reality, it garners multiple times the amount of money needed to run the Brethren school system, and it raises the question as to where the rest of the money goes. Now, the leader of the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church, Mr. Bruce Hales, has a huge and ornate custom-built home in an exclusive part of Sydney. His oldest son has an even larger mansion next door, and they're currently demolishing a couple of older houses over the back to make a large enough plot for a further mansion in the family compound. He has a personal jet, and he is immensely wealthy, and none of this has any connection at all to the missing billions from the UBT's fundraising.
Yeah, I've heard. So they have. They've also been accused of political interference in Australia. I'm pretty sure that it was the political connections that they had with that other situation with the NHS in Britain. There's corruption obviously involved with that. Again,
with the PPE, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's another thing. So for my audience, because just to bring it back to Canada for a second, the lawyer there, Jerry Shapur, I think he's pronounced it Shipier or something. I called him today to talk to him, and I got his voicemail, and he's like, Jerry Chipper or something. I was like,
I can think of less polite ways to pronounce it. Yeah.
Yeah. So just to give some background, I wrote an article about this today, actually, but I had yesterday Nathan Jacobson and David Wallace, which, by the way, if you could ever ask me to name two just fucking completely off the wall characters that you could find in Canada, you found the top two that I could think of.
Yeah,
With,
definitely.
you
Yeah,
know,
it's a really hard act to follow. I'm sorry, your audience is probably asleep by now.
hey,
Yeah.
listen, we're Canadian. You have a British accent. We're like hanging on every word, brother. Like I'm
Yeah,
telling you.
you're just making me talk so you can listen to the voice. I know.
That's right. That's right. But the thing is that so Nathan was talking about how, and so Jerry Shapur, which is just the accepted pronunciation that I'll use,
Yeah.
was the Conservative Party's general counsel for a long time when Stephen Harper was prime minister.
Yeah.
He is now the general counsel, from what I understand, of the Plymouth Brethren Church.
Yes. Well, in
And
Canada at least, or in North America
in
possibly.
Canada.
Yeah.
And so Nathan Jacobson told us last night, and I couldn't believe I was hearing this, that they basically found a way to, I think he said it was like $200 million profiting from the PPE situation during COVID by, I guess, finding the inside information that this contract was going to be sought a couple of months before it was actually announced, and was able to put his company in line first in order to receive the lucrative deal from Jason Kenney's government. Is that how you understand it?
I don't know anything about that. I mean, that would be
Okay.
information that Nathan has, which I have
Right.
no reason to doubt it. I mean, obviously something similar happened in the UK. Oh, you're talking about Chipper rather than the Brethren in
Well,
this case.
what he said is that the Brethren were profiting from it with him as partners.
Well, that doesn't surprise me at all, because the Brethren Association with Chipper goes back to at least, I think, 2006. So
Is
yeah,
the I'm just trying to wrap my head around this. Is the UBT also tax exempt, or is that separate from the church itself?
I don't really understand that. I mean, it's a global organization, and no doubt there are different tax rules in different countries. But it's a non-profit, so presumably,
Right.
if you're only taxed on your profits, presumably they don't pay any tax. But exactly
Okay.
how that works, I don't know.
Okay, so let's then go to the part where that caught my, basically the main reason why excuse me, I wanted to talk to you on the show. You after the situation happened where you kind of blew the whistle on that thing in the UK, they hired David Wallace to find you and lied. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I'm missing a couple steps probably, but
Yeah, you're
let me
missing
just
a couple of staircases gone. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what you're allowed to talk about, so I'm trying to like find a way to finagle it so that you can speak. Are you allowed to speak about anything that happens after the whistleblowing stuff, like how they treated you? Are you
Absolutely. I mean, the only restriction on what I can talk about relates to one specific organization, commercial company in the UK.
So let's go the day after the thing that we're not allowed to talk about happens, and then tell me what happened, and then tell me what happened to your life, and take as much time as you want, because I want people to understand exactly what you've gone through, so we can tie that together with David Wallace and Nathan.
Yeah. So what happened? What happened after the incident that I'm not allowed to speak about is that two Brethren priests turned up on my doorstep. In fact, not even the day after, the same day. By the Brethren, I should explain, doesn't officially have any hierarchy at all. The only person with an official position in the church is Bruce D. Hales himself, who's the so-called man of God, which the irreverent like myself abbreviate to MOG. So the MOG is official. Everyone else is, in theory, all on the same level, but in practice, more unscrupulous and wealthier businessmen within any one congregation will float to the top of the cesspit, and basically by their contacts and connections with the Australian head office govern the place, and they are known as priests. The Brethren are not exactly humble about their titles. So these priests turn up on the doorstep of my house. One of them looked scared. The other was so angry he was literally frothing at the mouth. I've never seen anyone. I thought that just happened in comics, but no, he really did have bubbles of foam coming out the corner of his mouth. He was so wild.
That just means he's a man of God. That's what happens to men of God when they yell.
No, he wasn't a man of God. There's only one man of God. There's only one Mog. Yeah.
Right,
He was
okay.
just one of the Mog's kittens. So I wasn't, I was extremely stressed and upset. I mean, I knew what was going to happen. I knew what the consequences of my actions were. And I just left. I didn't argue with him. I got in my car and drove off. And in fact, I disappeared for 2 weeks. I rented a room in a crummy house in the backside of Norfolk, middle of nowhere, and tried to sit down and spend some quiet time and rebuild my life. My wife became very concerned about me. She didn't hear anything from me. They in fact called the police and put me on the missing persons list. The police eventually reconnected with me when they found me sitting in my car with a bottle of beer outside of William and Kate's mansion near Sandringham. I think they have high security around there. I didn't realise it was William and Kate's place. It was just a nice country lane, and I was chilling out. So the police, then said, look, this guy isn't missing. And eventually I went home again, hoping that people had calmed down a bit. But from that point, I knew that it was only a question of time before I had to leave. And so I made plans to go. Meanwhile, the brethren, of course, communicated with the Mog. The Mog came back and said that Richard has been treacherous and unbrotherly, and he needs to make public confession of this for the matter to be cleared. I said, I haven't been treacherous and unbrotherly. I just did what any good citizen would do in the situation. Refused to attend a meeting that they were setting up. And by a meeting, this is what in the Brethren, this is Brethren terminology, this is what they call going to church. It's called a meeting. So there were like 200 in the congregation in Cambridge, UK, where I was. They'd set up this meeting. I was supposed to go in. They would have a hymn. They would have a prayer. They would read out a long confession statement, which I was supposed to assent and make humble remarks, and then they would admonish me and forgive me. I said I wasn't going to attend. I didn't think it was honest for me to say I was sorry about it, because I would do the same thing again in the same circumstances. And within a week, I packed my bags and left permanently. And that was the last time I saw my children or my ex-wife.
Yeah. Hear me, by the way?
Yeah, I hear you loud and clear.
My internet is going in and out right now, so hopefully I don't lose you. I can't even change the screen. I can see in the comments that people are not sure what to think. I see people wondering if we're going down conspiracy theory holes. Everything that you've been talking about right now is searchable online, is it not?
Oh, 100%, yeah. Yeah, I mean, multiple instances of the same thing happening to other former members, and yeah, the whole thing that blew up in the UK is extremely findable on Google, and particularly on Wayback Machine, because I always made sure to back up everything on Wayback Machine.
Yeah. So I just want to let the audience know, because I know that are chatting, and the doubt that you're expressing is probably just a disbelief that, anytime you talk about cults, because that's really what this is, right? It would be described as cult, don't you think?
Oh, 100%, yeah. Yeah.
It is difficult for a lot of people to wrap their head around the idea that people behave like this. And I want people in the chat, if they can, to Google Richard's name with I don't know, NHS and Plymouth Brethren, and just, do your due diligence a little bit before you start knocking it as a conspiracy theory. I get it because it's a ridiculously hard to believe story on the face of it, but there's receipts online where people can read about and learn about your story. In fact, I saw something the other day where a couple of ex-members of the church were actually commenting about how the truth of your situation that you can't really talk about had come out and completely basically exonerated you because it was basically everything that you said from the beginning.
Yeah.
And so the losing your family part really got to me because, you know, if it, the idea that family, and this is another Scientology kind of aspect of it, that the idea that a family member like a wife and then children or whatever can turn their back on somebody, on you, on a husband, and side with a church or a cult is the most heartbreaking aspect of this story as far as I'm concerned. You know, and I'm wondering if I'm wondering if you feel like there's ever going to be a chance of reconciliation and reuniting with them.
Yes, it is very hard to understand, but it is beaten and drummed into you from your earliest memories that loyalty to the church is ahead of loyalty to natural family. In fact, they use a terminology in the church. They talk about the first family and the second family. And what that means is the first family is your natural family, your relatives, your mum and dad and your kids and your wife. And they use the term first in the sense of being that's what you start out with. And then it's superseded by the second family, which is the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church. And so it's always drummed into your loyalty to the church, and which is, of course, the same thing as your loyalty to Bruce D. Hales, the Mog.
So you keep on saying the word Mog. What does Mog mean? Man of God?
Mog is just an abbreviation for the Man of God.
Okay.
I mean, it's a blasphemous title, so we call him the Mog. Yeah.
Oh,
Or the
okay.
Mog. Or the Mog. Yeah.
It does sound like a dark novel villain or something.
Yeah. Well, it's like the Mog Father. You watch the Mog Father. Yeah.
That's funny. I don't mean to laugh, but you know, do you ever find levity in any of this? I know it's like your life has been completely turned upside down and ruined and everything. I'm not trying to like lessen the impact that it's had on you, but do you ever use levity like that in order to like help you cope?
Oh, 100%. Yes, I use a lot of levity. I mean, when you see the brethren from the outside, it's ludicrous and it's funny and it's hilarious and I get a big kick, and the whole ex-brethren community gets a big kick out of poking fun at the Mog and his loopy antics. Yeah.
So are we at did we take the staircases up to the point where you're almost within contact with David Wallace yet? My audience knows who David is because we've interviewed him twice in the last couple of days.
Well, the brethren started hunting me down because I published a number of websites and social media pointing out fraud and corruption in a number of different Plymouth Brethren owned businesses, not one, but several. And then moving on from that, I started pointing out these sort of inconsistencies in the church itself, and you know how they claim to be compassionate and caring, and how they were cruel and unpleasant and nasty and selfish and unchristian. So I mean, I was in a situation that my wife, of course, divorced me. I took nothing from the divorce, so I was, you know, literally penniless. I didn't have any money. I got myself a job washing up in a pub, which was fun, and paid the rent on a very, very small cottage in the country. And I realized that the brethren had made a tactical error, because in having left me with absolutely nothing, they had no hold on me anymore. Because you know, they're very good at concocting ways of prosecuting people, claiming libel, claiming slander, and so on and so forth. But the only penalty the law will exact is to slap fine or damages on the supposed offender. And of course, if you have no money and no property, the only effect of that is to render you technically bankrupt. It has no practical effect at all. So, many people who've left the Brethren, they have property, they have a car, they have some money in the bank, and they're vulnerable to these kind of legal attacks. And I realized I wasn't. So I felt quite liberated in expressing what I thought about the Brethren. And of course it infuriated them. They tried to prosecute me for libel. Well, they successfully prosecuted me for libel about a statement that I'd made that one of their members had hacked my website and social media, which was I could prove that a member of the Brethren had hacked my website and social media, but I couldn't prove specifically which member it was. So, I mean, you'll find on my YouTube channel the evidence there, the receipt, as you call it. I made a technical error in naming a name, which I couldn't actually conclusively prove that this was the guy behind it. And so, yes, they secured a libel case against me, which resulted in them being awarded damages of £50,000, which of course I couldn't possibly pay. But it had no consequence. I mean, they wasted probably $1 million in huge legal cases and top lawyers and everything. And, I went to the courtroom. I didn't even go to the courtroom for that one. It was just water off a duck's back. And of course, I continued to publish, and I do continue to publish information about the Brethren that they don't want made public. And I make fun of the MOG and publish memes and cartoons. It is funny, but it's with a serious purpose, and that is that the whole MOG situation with Bruce Hales is a classic example of the Emperor's New Clothes. The guy is obviously not spiritual. He's obviously not religiously competent. He's obviously just a fat, greedy bastard who scams everyone and everything he can lay his greedy hands on. He's ugly. He's overweight. He's got a huge double chin. He is an alcoholic. He's foul-mouthed and stupid. And yet,
tell us what
the Brethren.
What you really think?
I was holding back. The Brethren worship this guy. Yeah. He's much more important to them than God. And it's just like the Emperor's New Clothes. They all know deep down, somewhere deep down, they know something's wrong, but it's just waiting for the little boy to burst out laughing and say, the Emperor has no clothes. So I'm the little boy, I'm not intimidated by him and his court cases and his fat cat lawyers. I just sit in my seclusion and quietness and my very limited means and poke fun at the guy, and it infuriates him. And the reason is, like a classic dictator, he doesn't mind people getting angry and swearing at him because that shows that he's succeeded in provoking them. He doesn't mind, of course, that people love and adore him, and that's what he lives for, but he hates to be laughed at. Nothing makes him wilder than someone just poking fun at the guy.
Is that him?
And I think that's the guy. Yeah. No, he looks worse than that. He's drunk a lot more since then.
He looks like he has sausage fingers, doesn't he? He's one of those guys, right?
Oh, well, yeah, like the big German ones. Yeah.
Bratwurst.
So yeah, I mean that's really why he came after me so viciously. It's because I'm just laughing at him, and he knows he knows there's nothing he can do about it. He knows his lawyers can't exact any penalty on a man who has no possessions. So
yeah,
it wasn't a big surprise. Yeah.
Right. I was just going to say, kudos to you for using kind of like humor to sort of communicate that. Because I like to pride myself as being completely transparent. Um, before the
That sounds
show,
spicy
uh,
for
be,
you, but yeah.
no, but before yeah, right. Before the show, um, I was downstairs fighting with my wife, and I had sent Richard the link, and he clicked the link, and I came back and I was all flustered, and I was like, "Did you hear any of that?" And and you're such a gentleman. You're like, I heard someone say the word James a couple times, but to your point, when you let someone provoke you into anger, you let them win, right? Like that's really
Oh,
it
exactly. Yes. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. I mean, I've got a huge advantage. I'm on the autism spectrum, and for some reason, it has the effect on me that it's impossible for me to lose my temper. I get situations where most people would fly off the handle, and I start laughing, which actually infuriates the other party a lot more.
Can you
And
send me a pint of your blood?
sure, sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks.
might be best to freeze it or it'll ferment.
Whatever. I'll
Yeah,
take it.
yeah, yeah. It's a useful little soup. Um,
Yeah.
but so yeah, I drove the guy to to madness, to overreact deliberately. I mean, I
Right.
expected this to happen. I thought, well, I'm in a safe position. At least I thought I was in a safe position. His lawyers can't get me anymore, um, although they came damn close to it. Let's just keep poking and poking and poking, and just see what happens. Like the little kid with a stick and the hippopotamus at the zoo. You just poke it through the bars, and you know that at some point it's going to come up and open its big mouth and do something stupid.
Like
And it did. It did. Yeah.
yeah. Um Sorry, you just reminded me of Mike Tyson's Punch Out, that video game. Because every time that one guy opened his mouth, that's when you're supposed to punch him in the mouth. I don't know. However, now, so how did who hired David Wallace? Like the interesting thing is that all this stuff happened in the UK, and then you come to Canada, and I guess they found out that you're in Canada, and then hired David Wallace as a private investigator to find you.
Yeah, well, I'd been backwards and forwards, UK, Canada, Jamaica, and yeah, they'd hired private investigators against me, and when I was living in Regina, well, at least a process server. Well, when I was living in Regina, I joined a Facebook group and was leading walks in the park for a kind of a social group, single social group, just to, learn how to socialize, having come out of the Brethren. And it was a collection of 50, 60-year-old odds and ends of society. And we were just about to start our walk around the lake, and this guy comes up to me and says, "Are you Richard Marsh?" So I said, "Yes." And he sort of hands over a great bundle of papers, and it was a process server serving legal papers on me. And yeah, he had tracked me down through social media and so on and so forth. So that was one of the first private investigators against me. But then the next private investigator they hired against me was, the events that were described in Breaking Brethren, where my wife was followed on a bus and followed home from work. That was a guy called Stu Morse, out of Calgary. Pro West Investigations. You can look him up online. Seems to be was a very competent Calgary detective. He actually got into the Calgary paper a couple of times for successfully arresting, I believe, a gentleman who was collecting ladies' underwear off washing lines, which obviously qualified him supremely to set up an extremely expensive private detective agency. I think he wishes now he'd stuck with the lingerie department. He was hired by Brad Mitchell, who is probably the leading member of the Plymouth Brethren in Canada and is the owner of Klondike Lubricants. He started stalking my wife initially. The way that came about was My wife was at Centennial College in Toronto, studying culinary arts. As part of her course, she was required to put up a LinkedIn account. It was part of the course was how to present yourself on social media. So she puts up this LinkedIn account and mentions on the LinkedIn account that she's working at Nicey's Eatery, which is a little very nice Jamaican restaurant. I'll put in a little puff for them here. It's a very, very good Jamaican restaurant in Scarborough, Nicey's Eatery. She was working there part-time as a chef.
Can I just interject for a second?
Yeah.
I love Scarborough because they always have these plazas, and it's like a nail place, a Jamaican restaurant, a massage place, and a hairdresser, and they're always all side by side, like all of them.
So which order do you do those in?
I usually do the massage and then the jerk chicken, but that's just they're one and the same sometimes. Anyways, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Talking of jerk. So anyway, she put this up, and I didn't really notice what she was doing. I was not on top alert at that point. I was keeping a low profile. Anyway, within days of her putting up that profile, some weird bloke appears in Nicey's Eatery, buys himself a cheap popped drink, and sits there staring at the staff, and then eventually follows home one member of the staff who wasn't actually my wife, but somewhat resembled her. I mean, they're all Jamaicans. Yeah. And this girl was quite alarmed. I think she called the police. Anyway, next day, the guy had obviously realized he'd followed the wrong person home, and he was following my wife home on the bus. I mean, we didn't have a car, it was all public transport. She is very sharp. She grew up in a very dangerous country, in a very rough corner of a very dangerous country, and she's completely aware of what's going on around her. So she came in the door and she said, "I'm being followed." I knew immediately this was the Plymouth Brethren. So from that point, I never left the house we were in by daylight. It was winter. There was long hours of darkness. I was working a night shift, so I would leave the house under cover of darkness, walk down the yard, climb over the back fence, climb through two neighbours' yards, and out onto the street, and walk along and catch the bus and go to work. She would go out the front door every day and be followed. There was one or two vehicles parked on the road outside at all times. This is a very quiet cul-de-sac, Osterhout Place in Scarborough, if you want to look it up. We just rented a room in the basement. And this went on for 3 weeks, and I kind of realized this was unsustainable. Sooner or later, they were going to catch me. My wife actually gave up her job because it was just hated being followed to and from work. And so I moved out. I moved into an Airbnb elsewhere in the Toronto area. And she bravely just tried to get on with life as if nothing was happening. Stuart Morse, the investigator, contacted her pretending to be a journalist, writing a magazine article about the experiences of foreign students working in Canada. And she knew perfectly well who he was, but she took the interview, met up with him in the cafe at Centennial College, and of course he starts off all the questions about her career, and then he moves on to her love life by some kind of segue, and wants to know if she's living with anyone in Canada and so on. So she assures him that no, she is not interested in men at all, and as soon as she's finished her studies, she's going back to Jamaica, and she doesn't have any relationships. She was just trying to throw him off the track. Yeah. But then things came to a bit of a head. I mean, as I said, I don't have a temper, but my wife has quite healthy, normal facilities in that department, if sufficiently provoked.
I just want to let everyone know that I've dated girls from Jamaica and Peru and Trinidad, and what Richard's saying is true.
Yes, and what's more, they have the facilities to follow up on it. So she was going to school one day, and these cars were parked on the road, and a guy that she's seen many times before hops out of one of the cars and follows her up the road, fairly close behind her. So she walks across the park, across the recreation ground, goes to the bus stop, and it's apparently, I never saw the guy, but he's a youngish 20-something, sort of lank, greasy, black hair, goth look. I'm not sure if he's wearing the black eyeshadow or not, but he definitely had black nail varnish.
He could have just been a Depeche. He could have just been a Depeche Mode fan, Richard.
He could have, he could have been. Anyway, she gets to the bus stop, and this guy is right behind him, and she loses it. And the man is lucky to be alive, if he's a man. And she whips round and says, "What the F are you following me for?" and advances on this guy. And the guy turns heel and flees away, crying out, "You crazy woman! You crazy woman!" and was shouting into his phone at the same time. And yeah, so, she was pretty pissed off with it all. And we realized that, we were living apart. I hadn't seen her in a month. She was being followed by these crazy people. We realized we'd have to find new accommodation.
Can I ask you if you or your wife ever called the police when these people were following you?
Multiple times.
What did the police do?
Yeah, the police came around 2 or 3 times and spoke to the guys. And when the police spoke to them, they would disappear for a day or two and then come back in a different vehicle. In fact, it's very interesting because just jumping forward a few months, Brad Mitchell supplied David Wallace with my wife's phone log, like itemized phone log,
Wow.
which for the period of 1 month. And it was that 1 month in which, or one of those months in which Stuart Morse was following my wife. And it contained in the phone log 10 phone calls to the Toronto police. And all of those related to my wife calling because she was actively being followed by someone from Stuart Morse's detective agency. So yeah, we were in contact with the police. The police, they were sympathetic, but they didn't take it very seriously. I suppose it's legitimate for private investigators to follow people. But anyway, that was Stuart Morse. And then there's the incident that was recounted on Breaking Brethren, whereby this ex-Brethren guy who I contacted, older guy called Dennis Ragg, had his James Bond moment and smuggled Kenesha and all our possessions out of this basement in Scarborough to a new location. He had a very fast vehicle and he got it all planned out, and he managed to lose the tail, so to speak. And so at that point, we vanished off the Brethren's radar, vanished off Brad Mitchell's radar. Anyway, Stuart Morse then got desperate to try and find us again. He contacted a very good friend of mine called Dr. Kirat Singh, who I'd known from business connections from way back when I was in the Brethren.
Wait a second. What was his name?
Dr. Kirat Singh.
You know what's funny?
He's a Sikh. Yeah.
Are you still friends with him?
Oh, very much so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
he looked at my LinkedIn. He looked at my LinkedIn profile today.
I'm sure he did, because I sent him a link to your last podcast.
Just making sure you were friends with him.
Yeah, he came back with a 3-word remark, which I won't repeat.
What?
Yeah, well, he was very impressed. I think he said something about shit hitting the fan.
Oh, okay. Good.
Yeah, which summed it up.
That's my job, right?
Yeah.
The world is like my wife. I just need to start yelling at it and things will happen. Just kidding.
So, Stuart Morse, I mean, if you Google my name online, the only contact of mine you will find, or at least until recently, is Dr. Kirat Singh. Because after I left the Brethren, I had a small business entrepreneur thing with him. We were going to do some scientific instruments. It never really worked out. But of course, all the website and everything's up there. So any private investigator trying to find me they go online and they find Dr. Kirat and they call him up and try and find out from him where Richard Marsh is. Kirat is extremely wise and extremely loyal, and is a great poker face. And he knew instantly what it was all about. But rather than saying something rude and slamming the phone down, he leads Stuart Morse on. He pretends to be tempted. I mean, Stuart Morse sent him considerable sums of money, thousands of dollars, just to basically talk with him. He tried to bribe Kirat into setting up a meeting with me in Edmonton so that they could wait at the meeting site and pounce on me. And Kirat, of course, all the time was communicating with me and telling me what was happening. And
I'm just curious. You don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but was Kirat sending you the money that he was getting paid?
We split it.
Okay.
Yeah, 50-50. Yeah.
I'm just curious. Yeah.
Yeah. So then we kind of thought, well, look, we can use this situation to our advantage. I was quite keen to make the brethren think I was anywhere but where I was. I wanted them to think I was in the UK, which was a very plausible thing, so they could waste their resources hiring private investigators in the wrong country. So we came up with this plan. Stuart Morse came over as not being the brightest bulb in the box. And Kirat and I came up with this plan. Well, let's see if we can feed this guy some misinformation, send him up a rabbit hole. So Kirat tells Stuart Morse, he says, look, I'm unhappy with this. I don't feel I can betray, my friend. It's not the kind of thing I do. Kirat was pretty insulted, by the way, that Stuart Morse even thought he might sell me out.
Yeah.
So Kirat says, I don't want to be involved, but I have a friend. I have a friend from university who was extremely clever with electronics, and he now works for British Telecom in Marshall Heath, which is their R&D headquarters. And he just might be able to get into Richard's phone, and he might just be able to hack his computer. Do you want me to, put you in contact? Of course, Stuart bites Kirat's hand off, and so we then concocted some fancy email address, xyzcipher@protonmail.com. We contact Stuart Morse in some kind of pigeon, as if, it was someone where English wasn't the first language, saying, we can help with finding Marshall's phone. And of course, Stuart being Stuart, thought he'd struck the gold mine, and he was sending emails all from Stuart Morse's proper pro-West investigation email account.
Smart.
Yes, I want these emails. Can you hack his phone? Can you track his phone? And so, after a due passage of time to make it seem realistic, Stuart Morse starts receiving packages of emails and screenshots of Richard Marsh's email account, which were genuine screenshots of my email account, but it was an email account I'd set up for the purpose of sending screenshots to Stuart Morse.
Oh, is it so? Were you trying to make it seem like you were overseas? Is that the idea?
Exactly, yeah. So it was very evident from the emails that Stuart Morse received that I was actually in the UK staying with my uncle, so on and so forth. And so this went on, and the mysterious hacker, Mr. Cypher X or whatever, succeeded in finding Richard's phone number, tracking his phone. I really do have an uncle in the UK, in Scotland.
Was he paying you? Was he paying you? Because for all this stuff.
Yes.
Oh, that's great.
Stuart
I
was.
fucking
Yes,
love that.
He paid about, I think, 7,000 or 8,000, which we split between us. It was very sweet, actually, because and thoughtful of the Plymouth Brethren Church, because when I added it up, the amount I got from Stuart Morse almost exactly compensated us for my wife's loss of employment and the cost of hiring the Airbnb for a month. So
Oh, okay.
It was all fair in the end.
We need to jump a couple of the stairs here for a little bit.
Yeah.
What is the when is the moment that you met David, and what were those circumstances?
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, we're actually right there because
Okay.
cut out some of the detail. Stuart realised he was being scammed. The brethren realised that Stuart was being scammed. And well, of course, Stuart did nicely out of it because the brethren actually paid for all this. And I'm sure Stuart put a fat markup on all the money. But suddenly Stuart was out of the picture. Suddenly he wasn't interested. And that was the point when the brethren, in desperation, contacted Gerald Chipper and said, what the hell do we do? We cannot find this guy. We think he's sent us up a rabbit hole. We've poured thousands and thousands of dollars into trying to find this guy. And Gerald Chipper consulted with his good and morally impeccable friend Alan Hallman, and they came up with the name David Wallace as being the ideal person to hunt me down.
Okay. We're a little pressed for time because I know there's another show that's coming up. If Kids on the Escalator people are listening, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna try to get off at by 8:30. I'll get off by 8:30. But I'm gonna just say right now to you, Richard, and to my audience, if we are still sort of like on the way in this story, I would like to invite you back for a part 2 tomorrow if you're available. Okay, just in case we run out of time. Is that going to work for you?
Yeah, with me, fine. Yeah, thank you.
And then we'll bring David and maybe Nathan in as well, and maybe Alex McIntosh, who's the director of Breaking Brethren. So we'll try to arrange all that sometime over the weekend or Monday. We'll figure it out. So we have about 20 minutes left. So you don't have to fast forward at all, but we can get now that we're at the David Wallace part. My audience is familiar with David. David is a crazy character. He is. I'm not used to the haircut yet. I've never seen that before. I'm used to seeing him with like short hair, so it's really
it's not cut.
It's like gorgeous but weird at the same time. I don't know how to think about it. And plus, I have no hair, so it's like.
I do want to know what shampoo he uses. I mean, we could both do with some help in that department.
Yeah, that's right. But you met him. So what he relayed to me is that he was hired to find you.
Yes.
He found you. What was the first meeting like with him?
Oh, well, I mean, I was not aware that he found me.
Okay.
The first thing I knew about David Wallace was that Kirat Singh phones me, Dr. Singh, and says, I've just had this phone call from a guy called David Wallace, who is very worried about you. He says that the brethren are hunting you down, and he thinks they want to kidnap you, and that you should get out of Ontario as fast as you can. So I said to Kirat, well, big surprise, they've got the next PI, but this is interesting, and it's possible that this Wallace guy is sincere. It's possible that this is a kind of a trap to get me to engage with Wallace. But my gut feeling was, and Kirat's gut feeling was, that this was genuine, just based on Wallace's tone of voice, genuine concern. So I said to Kirat, look, get a call recorder on your phone him back and ask him some more details. Kirat, loyal and faithful friend of mine, did exactly that, and recorded that fantastic 20-minute phone call, which is available on YouTube and other places, in which David Wallace goes over the whole story and says, get out of Dodge, get the F out of Dodge. These people hunting you down, they're fanning out.
Just to interject, Nathan Jacobson, the billionaire businessman, and David Wallace that were on the show last night, their version of this story, which is the same, but just to sort of put a bow on it a little bit, they were basically told, they were lied to by Shapur and by Brad Mitchell, who said that you had outstanding criminal warrants in Canada.
Yes.
And that they wanted David to find you because you had those warrants. And because Nathan Jacobson is so connected, he was able to contact law enforcement friends who told him that there were no existing criminal warrants for you. And that is when David was told by, I believe it was Mitchell, or I always say Dipshot. What's that fucking guy's name again?
That's a good one. Yeah, Dipshit
Yeah.
is his. Yeah, that's his real name, but they call him Diplop just because the other's not polite. Yeah.
It's an awful name. It's just an ugly name. Anyways, that he was basically saying, if you find him, hold him there, seize his last laptop, and keep him there until our team arrives.
Yeah. Well, all that's
Like
on the phone call. Yeah, that's on my
Yeah.
YouTube channel. You can hear it, and you can get the transcript. Yeah.
So this is really the part where it's kind of subjective by the way they. If I was in your position, I would be thinking that it would be smart of me to think the worst just because, right?
Yes.
Why else would they want to take your computer and hold you there? What were they going to do with you? You know, like.
Well, exactly. I mean, this is the biggest question in the whole thing, and this is the question everyone asked me. Were they really wanting to kill you? Were they really wanting to do you physical harm? And my answer is, well, what else were they going to do? They certainly didn't have an arrest warrant. Go ask them. Ask Dipshot. Ask Brad Mitchell. What were you actually going to do to Mr. Marsh when your team turned up and you'd got his computer and you were holding him? Go ask them. I don't have any. It's perfectly rational to think that they might want to rough me up or even to finish me off. But I can't imagine anything else useful they could do in those circumstances. So, as Sherlock Holmes said, if you've eliminated, if you've eliminated all the impossible things, then what remains must be the truth.
But you have like every right to fear for your safety as the person being hunted by this cult who are lying about arrest warrants so they can steal your laptop and send it, seal Brethren Team 6 or whatever the fuck they're going to do, to come and get you.
Yeah.
Like I would be, first of all, I would probably find a way to become armed. Like I'm not, I don't like guns. I've never owned one.
Well, I'm married.
Right. Like, right. Just, you know what? I would.
So, yeah.
I know you probably wouldn't do it. I would just send my wife to the location just to see what would happen. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, we're not far out because when I actually did meet up with Nathan Jacobson and David, I very specifically took my wife along with me.
Yeah. So when I talked to you on the phone the other day, sorry, I'm just gonna pause that part of the story for a second.
Yeah.
Didn't you tell me that and maybe I got this wrong, I don't know. But didn't you tell me that your wife went back to the church?
My wife.
No.
My first wife, my ex-wife never left the church, of course. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So this individual is your current wife. Are you guys together right now?
Oh, very much so. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm so happy. That makes me so happy.
Jamaica,
I didn't know that I didn't know you were previously married. So I'm looking at this beautiful woman and I'm just like, damn, she can cook Jamaican food. She's beautiful. Like, Jesus, fuck, these guys are assholes. But now you guys are together. So that makes me so happy.
I mean, you need to watch Breaking Brethren. On there, there's pictures of my former family and my former life with my 5 children and my ex-wife, who was a lovely woman. And I just feel terribly, terribly sorry for her because she just did what she had been raised and brainwashed into doing. I don't know. She suffered horribly as a result of all this. Mm-hmm. But that came to an end and there was nothing I could do about it. So yes, I mean, I married Kenesha in Jamaica and she's a fantastic woman and she's far more than I deserve or could ever have dreamed of, as well as being my bodyguard. Yes.
So, like, you can't. This is great. I'm sorry. I don't mean to like derail this, but I thought you were like living alone on the run. Your wife's in the cult, and I was, and I know that happened to your first wife, and I'm sorry that happened to her. I believe you when you say that she's lovely, and I really feel like she's a victim.
Very
of the
much.
church.
Yeah.
But to me, I was trying to find something over the last few days to hold on to your story that would like make me feel not like completely sorry for you. And the fact that you have that woman in your life, I think that you're right. I think you're a lucky man in that regard, and just focusing on her would be the greatest thing that you could do for yourself and for her. Right?
And what's more, just to kind of make a very public announcement, my wife and I are expecting a baby sometime around Christmas time. So,
congratulations! That's
Thank you.
awesome. You know what? I'm going to stop there, and the reason why I'm stopping there is first of all, we have a podcast that was probably supposed to start at around 8. But I like to end things on a positive note, and we are literally maybe halfway through the story.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because there's so much more to come. I want people to those clips that you sent me. Are they from Breaking Brethren? Or are they from
no, those are off my YouTube channel. They're just bits and pieces I acquired over time from various sources. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna play one of them, and then I'm going to come back and we'll end the show. Actually, you know what? No, I'm not gonna play it because it will spoil the positive ending of this show. But this is a part 1, and we're gonna do part 2. We're gonna figure it out. If you want to do it Saturday, Sunday, Monday, it's completely up to you. I will make myself available, and we'll continue the story. I want the audience to understand that it is a difficult story to follow if you don't give yourself to the idea that cults operate like this. This is how they operate. You should watch Breaking Brethren. It's a City TV documentary by Alex McIntosh. It is. I have not seen it yet. I haven't had time to watch it. I will watch it tonight. I'll probably watch it as soon as this ends, so that I can familiarize myself better. You're in it, correct?
Oh yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And my wife. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's tell her I say what's up and congratulations, please.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So listen, we'll have you back. We'll coordinate tonight or tomorrow, and we'll have you back, and we'll talk more about this Plymouth Brethren Church that just seems to be a nightmare force of darkness, and I'm happy that you're in a dude. I can't tell you how happy I am. I literally thought you were man, this guy's living the darkest, most awful life ever. He's all alone.
Well, I mean, for 3 years I was. I spent 3 years in hell. That was quite enough. Thanks.
Don't look to the past, man. Except for the stories that you tell us in the next episode.
Yeah.
Blackballed. Yeah. Richard Marsh, thank you. I'll give you a call in about half an hour or so. I appreciate that. That's Richard Marsh, everybody. I like shows that I like. I want to be organized for you guys. I really do. But I really enjoy the idea of me being surprised by a story that I thought I knew all the ins and outs of. And this is great. But I can't emphasize enough the cult that he had to escape from, and the lengths that they go through in order to cause punitive harm to a person that they think had betrayed them. It is parental. It is abusive. It is a ridiculous kind of nightmare that no one should have to live. So I hope you enjoyed part 1. And part 2, I will announce sometime this weekend, and we'll be back with Richard Marsh sometime soon. On Monday, I should mention actually that we have Michael Geist to talk about Bill C-11 and Bill C-18 and why the Trudeau government is doing their best Orwell impersonation. So we will see you then, and thank you for joining me on Blackballed.
Blackballed. Blackballed. Blackballed. Blackballed. Blackballed.